The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. A Young Battler. Chapter 1. Tom! No answer. Tom! No answer. What happened to that boy, I wonder? You, Tom! No answer. The old lady pulled her spectacles down and looked over them about the room. For a moment she looked puzzled. Then she said to herself, not fiercely, but still loud enough for the furniture to hear, "If I do get hold of you, I'll—" She did not finish, for by this time she was bending down and pushing the bed with her broom. She disturbed nothing but the cat. "Never did I see such a boy," she exclaimed. She went to the open door and looked out towards the tomato vines in the garden. "No, Tom." So she lifted up her voice at an angle calculated for distance and shouted, "You, Tom!" There was a slight noise behind her, and she turned just in time to seize a small boy by the edge of his jacket and arrest his flight. "There! I should have thought of that cupboard. What have you been doing in there?" "Nothing." "Nothing? Look at your hands, and look at your mouth. What is this stuff?" "I don't know, Aunt." "Well, I know. It's jam." "That's what it is. 40 times I said if you didn't let the jam alone, I'd skin you. Hand me that stick." The stick hovered in the air. The peril was desperate. "My, look behind you, Aunt." The old lady whirled round and snatched her skirts out of danger. The boy fled at that distance, scrambled over the board fence and disappeared. His Aunt Polly stood surprised a moment and then broke into a gentle laugh. "Hang the boy! Can't I ever learn anything? He's played enough tricks on me before, but they're always different. So how is a body to know what's coming? And he knows how long he can tease me before I get angry. Then he makes me laugh and I can't be cross. He'll play hooky this afternoon, and I'll be obliged to make him work tomorrow to punish him. It's hard to make him work Saturdays when all the boys are having holiday, but he hates work more than he hates anything else, and I've got to do my duty by him, or I'll be the ruination of the child." Tom didn't play hooky, and he had a very good time. He got back home barely in time to help Jim. The small servant boy saw the next day's foods and split kindlings before supper. At least he was there in time to tell his adventures to Jim while Jim did most of the work. Tom's younger brother, or rather half-brother, Sid, was already through with his part of the work, picking up chips, for he was a quiet boy and had no adventurous, troublesome ways. While Tom was eating his supper and stealing sugar as opportunity offered, Aunt Polly asked him questions, believing them to be cunning and ones that would trap him. Said she, "Tom, it was warm in school, wasn't it?" "Yes, Aunt." "Very warm, wasn't it?" "Yes, Aunt." Didn't you want to go swimming, Tom?" A bit of a scare shot through Tom, a touch of uncomfortable suspicion. He searched Aunt Polly's face, but he told nothing. So he said, "No, Aunt, well, not very much." The old lady reached out her hand, felt Tom's shirt, and said, "But you aren't too warm now, though." It pleased her to think that she had discovered that his shirt was dry without anyone knowing what was in her mind. Tom guessed her purpose and said hurriedly, "Some of us pumped water on our heads. Mine's still damp. See?" Aunt Polly was annoyed that she had overlooked that bit of evidence, but she had a new idea. "Tom, you didn't have to undo your shirt collar where I sewed it to pump water on your head, did you? Unbutton your jacket." A troublesome vanished out of Tom's face. He opened his jacket. His shirt collar was securely sewed. "Bother. Well, go along with you. I was sure you played hooky and been swimming. I reckon you're better than you look this time. She was half angry that her cleverness had miscarried, and half glad that Tom had been of good conduct for once. But Sidney said, "Well now, if I didn't think you sewed his collar with white thread, but it's black." "Why, I did sew it with white, Tom." But Tom didn't wait for the rest. As he went out of the door, he said, "Siddy, I'll lick you for that." In a safe place, Tom examined two large needles which were thrust into the lapels of his jacket and had thread wound round them. One needle carried white thread and the other black. He said to himself, "She'd never have noticed if I hadn't been for use it. Sometimes she sewed it with white thread and sometimes with black. I wish she'd say she'd stick to one or the other, but I'll lick Sid for that. I'll teach him." Tom was not the model boy of the village. He knew the model boy very well though, and disliked him. He got home fairly late that night, and when he climbed cautiously in the window, he bumped right into his aunt, who was waiting to catch him. When she saw that his clothes were in, she was more than ever determined Saturday would be working day for Tom. Saturday morning came, and all the summer world was bright and fresh and brimming with life. There was a song in every heart, cheer in every face, and a spring in every step. Tom appeared with a bucket of whitewash and a long-handled brush. He looked at the fence, all gladness left him. 30 yards of board fence several feet high. Sighing, he dipped his brush and passed it along the topmost plank. Repeated the operation. Did it again. Compared the whitewashed streak with the great expanse of Aunt Polly's unwhitewashed fence, and sat down discouraged. Jim came skipping out of the gate with a tin pail, singing happily. Bringing water from the town pump had always been hateful work in Tom's eyes before, but now it had not struck him so. He remembered that there was company at the pump. Boys and girls were always there waiting in their turn, resting, trading playthings, quarreling, fighting, skylarking. And he remembered that although the pump was only a short distance away, Jim never got back with a bucket of water under an hour. Even then, someone usually had to go after him. Tom said, "I'll say, Jim, I'll fetch the water if you whitewash some of the fence." Jim shook his head. "Can't, Tom. Miss Polly told me to get this water. She said she expects Tom will ask me to whitewash, and she told me to attend to my own business." "Oh, never mind what she said, Jim. That's the way she always talks. Give me the bucket. She won't know." "Why, darned. Lick me she would." She never licks anybody. Whacks them over the head with a thimble. And who cares for that? She talks. But talk doesn't hurt, as long as she doesn't cry. "Jim, I'll give you a marble. I'll give you a white alley." Jim began to weaken. "White alley? Jim!" Jim stared longingly at the marble. "And besides, if you will, I'll show you my sore toe too." This attraction was too much for Jim. He put down his pail, took the white alley, and bent over the toe with great interest while the bandage was unwound. In another moment, he was flying down the street with his pail and a stinging behind. Tom was whitewashing with vigor, and Aunt Polly was retiring from the field of battle with a slipper in one hand and triumphs in an eye. But Tom's energy didn't last. He began to think of the fun he had planned for this day, and his sorrows multiplied. So the three boys would be coming, tripping along all sorts of exciting expeditions, and they would make the world of fun of him for having to work. The thought burned him like fire. He got out all his worldly wealth and examined it. Bits of toys, marbles, and rubbish, enough to buy an exchange of work, maybe, but not half enough to buy as much as half an hour of freedom. He gave up the idea of trying to buy the boys. At this dark and hopeless moment, an idea burst upon him. He took upon his brush and went on quietly with his work. A few moments later, Ben Rogers came in sight, the very boy whose ridicule he had been dreading. Ben was eating an apple and giving a long, melodious whoop at intervals, followed by a deep-toned ding-dong, ding-dong, for he was pretending to be a steamboat. He was boat and captain and engine bell combined, and he had to imagine himself standing on his own deck giving orders and at the same time obeying them. "Stop us, sir! Ting-a-ling-ling! Get out the headline! Lively now! Take a turn round the stump! Stand by the stage! Done with the engines, sir! Ting-a-ling-a-ling!" Tom went on whitewashing, paid no attention to the steamboat. Ben stared a moment and then said, "Hi, you're up a stump, aren't you?" No answer. Tom looked over his last effort with the eye of an artist. Then he gave his brush another gentle sweep and looked at the result as before. Ben stood beside him. Tom's mouth watered for the apple, but he stuck to his work. Ben said, "Hello, old chap. You got to work, huh?" Tom wheeled round suddenly and said, "Why, it's you, Ben. I wasn't noticing." "Say, I am going swimming." "I am. Don't you wish you could? Of course you would." Tom stared at Ben for a moment and said, "What do you call work?" "Why, isn't that work?" Tom went back to his whitewashing and said carelessly, "Well, maybe it is and maybe it isn't. All I know is it suits Tom Sawyer." "Oh, come on. You don't mean to say that. You like it." The brush continued to move. "Like it? Well, I don't see why I shouldn't. Does a boy get a chance to whitewash a fence every day?" That put the thing in a new light. Ben stopped nibbling his apple. Tom swept his brush daintily back and forth and stepped back to criticize the effort. Ben watched every move and became more and more interested. Presently he said, "Say, Tom, let me whitewash a little." Tom considered, was about consent, but he altered his mind. No, I reckon that wouldn't do, Ben. You see, Aunt Polly is very particular about this fence. Right here on the street, you know. Now, if it was the back fence, I wouldn't mind, and she wouldn't. I reckon there isn't a boy in 1,000 or maybe 2,000 that can do it the way it's got to be done. "No, is that so? Oh, come on, let me try. I'd let you if you were me." "Ben, I'd like to, but Aunt Polly—" "Well, Jim wanted to do it, but she wouldn't let him. Sid wanted to do it, and she wouldn't let him. Now you see how it is." "Oh, go on, Tom. I'll be just as careful. Let me try. I'll give you the core of my apple." "Well, here, no, Ben, I'm afraid." "I'll give you all of it." Tom gave up the brush with unwillingness in his face but delight in his heart. And while the late steamboat actor worked and sweated in the sun, and the retired artist sat on a barrel in the shade close by, dangled his leg, munched his apple, and planned to trap any more innocents who came his way. There was no lack of material. Boys happened along every little while. They came to jeer but reminded to whitewash. And when the middle of the afternoon came, Tom had collected a kite, a dead rat, 12 marbles, parts of Jew harps, a piece of blue bottle glass to look through a fragment of chalk, a tin soldier, a couple of tadpoles, 6 firecrackers, a kitten with only one eye, a brass doorknob, a dog collar, a handle of a knife, 4 pieces of orange peel, and a worn window sash. He had had a nice idle time all the while, plenty of company, and the fence had 3 coats of whitewash on it. Tim had discovered the great law of human nature, that in order to make a man or boy want a thing, It is only necessary to make it difficult to attain. He mused a while over the great change in his worldly wealth before he went inside to report.